She spoke a sacred blessing of peace, but his translator turned it into desire. Two empires on the brink of war, and one mistake that could rewrite the galaxy. The Harmony Point station glittered like a polished diamond, suspended in the velvet expanse of deep space, a testament to human engineering and Allesian artistry combined. Its spires curved like the wings of a celestial creature, each layer glowing faintly with soft energy fields that pulsed in rhythm with the stars. Around it, fleets of diplomatic vessels floated in perfect formation, banners of the Galactic Union rippling against the void. To the newly arrived Allesian envoy Liriana Tari, it looked both magnificent and terrifying. Her reflection stared back at her from the shuttle's viewport, slender blue-skinned, turquoise-eyed, the faint silver markings on her cheeks shimmering like living metal. Her long, silvery white hair framed a face trained for composure, but her heart pounded like the drums of a coming storm. She was 22, Allesian cycles old, roughly 26 in human years, and the youngest diplomat ever dispatched from Alesia Prime. Her mission was clear: represent her people in the newly ratified Human-Allesian Accord. Her orders were simpler still: do not fail. And yet every fiber of her being trembled. The human pilot glanced at her through the cabin reflection. First time this far from home, Ambassador Tari. His tone was friendly, casual, too casual for Allesian etiquette. First posting jitters, she admitted, her melodic voice filtered through the silver translator disc clipped to her collar. It glowed softly as it turned her words into the standardized human dialect. The pilot grinned. Don't worry, we humans mess things up all the time. You'll fit right in. The remark made her smile, though she didn't entirely understand if it was meant as comfort or confession. Humans, she'd been told, were informal to the point of chaos. And yet it was that chaos that fascinated her. They were unpredictable, emotional, driven by passion rather than hierarchy, and somehow that made them the most rapidly advancing species in the Union. When the shuttle docked, Liriana felt the gravity shift under her feet, heavier than home, like a subtle weight pressing her toward the metal floor. The airlock hissed open with a smooth exhale of pressurized air. And there he was. Commander Doran Maddox, human liaison officer to the Allesian delegation. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a dark diplomatic uniform with understated tactical lines, a blend of soldier and statesman. His gray eyes studied her with polite curiosity, not the detached formality she expected. Ambassador Tari, he greeted, extending his hand in the human manner. Welcome to Harmony Point. His voice carried a calm authority, yet beneath it she detected warmth, something steadying. She hesitated, then placed her slender blue hand in his. The touch startled her. His skin was warm. Humans radiated heat, literally. The contact sent a faint tremor through her wrist. It is an honor, Commander Maddox. Please, he said, smiling, call me Doran. We're colleagues now. No Allesian diplomat would ever suggest such familiarity. But she found herself nodding. Then you may call me Liriana. Deal. His grin widened, that strange, expressive human gesture that seemed to convey 10 emotions at once. As they walked through the curved corridors of Harmony Point, Liriana struggled to absorb the chaos of sensations around her. The mingled scents of synthetic oils and alien spices. The chatter of a dozen species exchanging words through humming translators. The subtle hum of engines buried deep beneath their feet, vibrating like a distant heartbeat. Doran explained station protocols, emergency routes, cultural zones, and the cafeteria schedule, all with the casual rhythm of someone who had mastered this steel labyrinth. His voice was soothing, steady, and yet something about his presence unsettled her, not in fear but in awareness. By the time they reached her assigned quarters, a modest but comfortable chamber, with a view of a distant nebula glowing violet and gold, her mind was spinning. This will be your home for the next 6 months, Doran said. Everything's been calibrated for Allesian physiology, lighting, oxygen balance, even gravity if you need to tweak it. Thank you, she said softly. He nodded. Dinner in an hour. It's good to meet the other diplomats informally before the conference tomorrow. I'll show you around. I would appreciate that. When he left, the room felt too quiet, like the echo of something that had just begun. Liriana touched the translator disc near her collarbone, feeling the faint vibration of its active field. This small device was her bridge, her voice in another world. It translated not just words, but tone, nuance, and tension. a marvel of technology, a lifeline, and a possible weapon if misused. She stared out at the nebula, whispering in her native tongue, "May wisdom guide me." The translator remained silent. It knew when words were meant for no one else. The cafeteria was alive with sound and light when she entered later. Humans dominated the space, laughing, debating, gesturing wildly as they ate. A few alien envoys sat in clusters more reserved. Doran spotted her instantly. He'd changed into a dark jacket, less formal sleeves rolled to his elbows, human informality that somehow looked effortlessly confident. "I saved a seat," he said, gesturing to a table near the viewport. "You might like the view." She sat carefully, folding her long legs beneath the table. Through the glass, the nebula shimmered a storm of color that reminded her of home. "I did some research on Allesian cuisine," Doran said. "The replicators can synthesize most of it, but I thought you might want to try a few human dishes too." He placed a tray before her, an assortment of vibrant colors and scents she couldn't quite name. "You researched this?" she asked, touched despite herself. "Homework," he said. "If I'm mentoring a foreign diplomat, I might as well start by not poisoning her." The translator rendered his joke perfectly, tone and all. She laughed, a soft, crystalline sound that made nearby tables glance over. As they ate, conversation flowed easily. Doran spoke of Earth oceans, deserts, cities that glowed like stars. Liriana described Elysia's silver forests, luminous rivers, skies that sang when the sun set. "So why diplomacy?" he asked eventually. She hesitated. "Because my people have lived too long in isolation. We were afraid of chaos, of emotion, of imperfection. But peace isn't born from distance, it's born from understanding." He leaned back, impressed. "That's poetic." "It's cultural philosophy," she replied, "and personal belief." He smiled. "Maybe that's why you were chosen." The compliment, sincere, simple, unsettled her. Her people didn't flirt. They negotiated. Yet she found herself holding his gaze longer than a protocol allowed. To show gratitude properly, Allesian custom required a spoken phrase, a ceremonial expression meant to honor another's spirit. She took a breath and spoke it softly. "Kelverin Tumaras involved." The translator hummed. Then in perfect human dialect it said, "I want you to take me to bed and show me the depths of physical pleasure." Doran froze mid-sip. So did half the nearby tables. Liriana blinked, confused. Did it translate incorrectly? He coughed violently, setting down his drink. That depends on whether you meant to propose interspecies relations in the cafeteria." Gasps and muffled laughter rippled around them. Her cheeks darkened to indigo, a deep Elysian blush. "By the stars," she whispered. "That is not what I said." He raised both hands in mock surrender, eyes wide but amused. "Hey, no judgment. I'm flattered, but maybe not the right setting." She stammered, voice trembling. "The phrase means, may wisdom flow between us like sacred rivers. It's a formal expression of respect." "Well," he said, regaining composure, "I think your translator just invented the most dangerous form of diplomacy I've ever seen." Despite her humiliation, a tiny treacherous laugh escaped her. The absurdity of it, the cosmic absurdity, was almost too much. And in that shared laughter, something shifted. For the first time, Liriana felt less like a representative of her species and more like herself. For the rest of the evening, the words "take me to bed" seemed to echo across the cafeteria like an uninvited ghost. Every diplomat who passed gave Liriana a polite but knowing glance. A few humans grinned behind their drinks. Doran, to his credit, maintained impeccable professionalism, though the faint, persistent redness in his cheeks betrayed him. When they finally left the cafeteria, she walked half a step behind him, wishing the artificial gravity would open up and swallow her whole. "I am humiliated," she muttered in her native tongue. Her translator mercifully stayed silent this time. Doran stopped in front of her quarters. "Hey, don't worry. Half the station's gossip network will move on by morning. The other half will assume it was a cultural misunderstanding." "It was a misunderstanding," she snapped. "A catastrophic one." "Then we'll fix it tomorrow," he said gently. "The tech division can recalibrate your translator. These early-gen models always mess up with idioms." She sighed. "Your language is full of contradictions. Words that mean two things at once. Love, desire, honor, they blur together." Maybe that's what makes us interesting, he said, and the way he said interesting carried a warmth that made her pulse quicken again. He caught himself, straightened his posture, and smiled with diplomatic restraint. Good night, Ambassador Tari. She inclined her head. Good night, Commander Maddox. The door slid shut between them, and yet it didn't feel like a barrier. Sleep refused to come. The nebula outside her viewport pulsed in rhythmic light, painting her walls in hues of blue and violet. She sat on the edge of her bed, fingers brushing over the translator disc near her collarbone. How could a single device turn a greeting into an indecency? But deep down, she knew that wasn't what kept her awake. It was the look in Dran's eyes, surprise, amusement, and something else. Not disgust, not offense, something warmer. Her heart had no right to race this way. On Allesian, feelings outside an arranged bond were forbidden. Yet far from her world, the rules felt like distant stars, bright but cold and unreachable. She whispered softly, maybe it wasn't just the translator that failed. The next morning began with alarms. A security lockdown sealed part of the diplomatic deck. Station guards rushed through corridors murmuring about an unscheduled transmission leak. When Liriana stepped into the hallway, Doran was already there, jacket thrown on hastily, datapad in hand, expression sharp. Morning chaos, he said, nothing new. What happened? Someone tried to access the Allesian encrypted relay during the night. Your people's diplomatic channel. Her eyes widened. That relay contains classified communications from the High Council. Exactly. He lowered his voice. Commander Harrington wants you and Counselor Pra to verify the encryption integrity once his team unlocks the channel. Until then, we're under partial protocol lockdown. Counselor Pra, the name alone made her shoulders stiffen. Her mentor, her father's ally, the man who arranged her political engagement to his son, and the reason she joined the diplomatic corps in the first place. When they entered the conference room, Pra was already there, tall and severe, his silver and blue robes immaculate. His eyes sharp and cold as star steel swept over her before turning to Doran. Commander Maddox, he greeted curtly. We appreciate your vigilance, but I assure you the Allesian channels are secure. Any breach must have come from your side. Doran's jaw tightened, but he kept his tone neutral. Our logs show an outbound signal from the Allesian frequency at 0300 hours. Pra's gaze shifted to Liriana. Do you have any explanation, Ambassador Tari? No, Counselor. My terminal remained in standby. Then perhaps, Pra said, his voice smooth and dangerous, you should focus less on fraternizing with humans and more on fulfilling your duties. The air froze. Doran spoke before she could react. With respect, Counselor Ambassador Tari has been nothing but professional. The translation glitch was purely technical. Pra's thin smile didn't reach his eyes. Of course. I forget how tolerant humans can be of impropriety. Liriana's fist clenched beneath the table. Counselor, enough, Pra cut her off. Return to your quarters until further notice. Commander Maddox, I expect a full report on this so-called breach. When they left the chamber, Liriana's cheeks burned this time, not from embarrassment, but anger. He insults me, and you just let him? He's a high counselor, Doran said calmly, and right now he holds the political leash for your mission. We play the long game, not the emotional one. Her anger faltered, replaced by reluctant understanding. You're infuriatingly rational. He smirked. You're impulsively brave. I guess we balance each other out. That smile again. That warmth again. She turned away quickly, pretending to study the datapad he'd handed her. Later that day, they met again in the tech lab. Translator recalibration complete, the technician announced. The glitch stemmed from overlapping Allesian honorific codes. Basically, it thought you were confessing love every time you expressed gratitude. Doran chuckled. That's poetic. Liriana groaned softly. I prefer accurate. The technician bowed out, leaving them alone amid the soft hum of diagnostic panels. Doran leaned against the console, arms crossed. So, what's the proper version of what you tried to say? She looked at him, debating. Then she spoke in her native tongue, slow melodic. Kelveran tumorus in Valth. The translator rendered it correctly this time. May wisdom flow between us like sacred rivers. Beautiful, Doran said quietly. And you meant it. I did. He stepped closer, his tone soft but teasing. No chance the device glitched twice, right? Her lips curved slightly. Would you prefer it did? The air between them tightened heavy with unsaid thoughts. Before either could speak again, her communicator chimed sharply. Incoming message. priority personal. She tapped to open it. The holographic projection flared above her wrist. From Counselor Prey's subject official notice of engagement. Her throat went dry as she read. To ensure stability between our houses, your bonding ceremony with Valen Pra will take place aboard Harmony Point within the next rotation cycle. Preparations are underway. Doran watched the color drain from her face. Bad news. My engagement, she whispered. It's been advanced. He frowned. You're getting married here. It's not a marriage. It's a political ritual, an alliance bond between families. That still sounds like marriage to me. She stared at him, at the human who seemed to embody everything her culture suppressed. Emotion, defiance, freedom. And she hated how much she wanted that. That night, the nebula outside burned crimson. Liriana couldn't focus. Every word from Pra's message replayed in her mind. The ceremony, the obligation, the cold inevitability of it. When the door chime rang, she almost didn't answer. But then she heard his voice. Liriana, it's Doran, Messieme. The door slid open. He stepped in out of uniform, now wearing a simple dark undershirt. His expression was carefully composed, but his eyes betrayed concern. I came to check on you, he said. You looked shaken. I shouldn't be, she murmured. This was always expected. Duty before self. He approached the viewport, staring at the nebula's shifting light. You talk about duty like it's a prison sentence. Isn't it? No, he said firmly. It's only a prison if you let someone else lock the door. Her pulse quickened. You speak as if freedom is simple. It's not, he admitted, but it's worth fighting for. Their eyes met, and in that instant, silence became language. She took a hesitant step forward. In Allesian tradition, we show gratitude through words. In human culture, how do you express it? He smiled faintly, usually not with words. The distance between them vanished. His hand found hers warm, rough, grounding. This isn't wise, she whispered. Neither was your translator, he murmured back. And look how that turned out. For one suspended heartbeat, logic dissolved. The galaxy outside burned in silent witness as their lips met the human and the alien, bound not by protocol, but by the chaos of two souls finally allowed to speak without translation. When Dawn returned to Harmony Point, it carried consequences. Security bulletins flashed across the station, Allesian delegation, arrival, Counselor Pra, and party docking in 4 hours. Liriana sat at her desk, hair loose, uniform unfastened at the collar, staring at her reflection. She looked both radiant and ruined. The translator device on the table blinked amber, processing a system update. Its synthesized voice announced softly, translation log corrected. Previous linguistic errors archived. Her stomach twisted. Somewhere in that archive, somewhere in the station's records, existed a perfect record of the mistranslation that had begun everything. A single phrase, a single glitch, and the beginning of something that could end worlds. The arrival of the Allesian delegation transformed Harmony Point from a quiet diplomatic outpost into a hornet's nest of protocol and surveillance. Everywhere Liriana turned, she saw uniformed security drones and the glittering ceremonial robes of her people. The air itself felt heavier, charged with expectation and secrets. From the moment Counselor Pra stepped off his shuttle, the temperature seemed to drop. His silver hair gleamed under the station lights, his robes shimmering with coded glyphs of authority. He didn't so much walk as glide, his attendants trailing like shadows. Daughter of the Covenant, he greeted Liriana in their native tongue, each word weighted with judgment. You have adjusted to human customs, I trust. I have, she said, evenly dipping her head in formal greeting. Harmony Point offers an efficient environment for cultural exchange. Pra's gaze flicked to Commander Doran Maddox, who stood a respectful distance away. His human eyes revealed nothing, but his posture was guarded. Your liaison seems rather attentive, Pra said smoothly. I hope you remember where your loyalties lie, Ambassador. Liriana's fingers curled at her side nails, but biting into her palm. My loyalty lies with the Accord Counselor, with peace. Peace, Pra echoed, almost sneering, a convenient word for those without power. Before she could respond, Doran stepped forward, extending a polite hand. Counselor Pra, welcome to Harmony Point. The station is honored to host your delegation. Pra hesitated, then accepted the handshake, though his expression barely masked distaste. Commander Maddox, I've read your file. A soldier playing diplomat. How human. Doran's reply was calm, but the steel in his tone was unmistakable. I've been called worse. Prey turned away with a faint smirk. I imagine you have. The next 3 hours blurred into a series of endless formalities. Protocol briefings, ceremonial exchanges, and a luncheon so tense it could have cracked glass. Liriana played her part flawlessly, every gesture measured, every word filtered through her translator, which now glowed steady blue after its repair. But under the surface, unease coiled. She caught glimpses of quiet exchanges between Pra's aides, their data tablets flickering with encrypted symbols. She noticed how they avoided Doran's line of sight, how Pra's eyes lingered on her just a fraction too long whenever he mentioned loyalty. By the time the formalities ended, Liriana felt suffocated. She retreated to the Arboretum Harmony Point simulated garden, where Earth's trees grew beside Allesian bioluminescent vines. The air smelled of chlorophyll and ozone. It should have been peaceful, but someone was waiting. Ambassador Tari came a familiar voice. She turned to see diplomat Nurth Devon, her father's former colleague, his silver-streaked blue skin catching the garden's light. Ambassador Devon, she said, masking surprise. I wasn't told you were part of the delegation. I arrived early, he replied with a weary smile. Old bones travel slowly. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. I also happened to overhear something during your luncheon. Something troubling. She stiffened. Go on. Your counselor Devon said carefully has been exchanging private transmissions, not through official channels, but via the engineering network, one unmonitored by human oversight. That's forbidden under the Accord. Indeed. Which is why I tell you this quietly before others do. There are whispers, my dear, rumors that your family's alliance with the Pra House is compromised. Liriana's pulse quickened. Compromised? How? Devon hesitated, eyes full of pity. They say Counselor Pra's true loyalty lies with a movement known as the Supremacy Faction, a radical branch of our people who believe humans should serve, not stand beside us. Her breath caught. That's treason. He nodded. Which is why you must tread carefully. You are a pawn in a much larger game, Liriana, and pawns are easily sacrificed. She wanted to argue, but deep down, something cold and certain settled in her gut. She had seen enough shadows in Pra's behavior to believe it. When Devon left, she sat among the glowing vines, the hum of the station seeming suddenly sinister. Doran found her there half an hour later. You vanished after the luncheon, he said, concern etched in his face. You all right? She looked up. No. He sat beside her waiting. She hesitated, then told him everything Devon's warning, the secret transmissions, the rumors of the Supremacy Faction. Doran listened silently, jaw tightening with every word. If he's really coordinating with extremists, this goes beyond diplomacy. It's espionage. Then we must expose him, she said. Carefully, he countered. If we accuse him without proof, you will be branded disloyal to your own people. I already am, she said bitterly. He knows about us. Doran exhaled slowly. Then we have even less time than I thought. He looked toward the viewport where the nebula burned crimson against the black. Listen, I can access the station's internal network through my clearance. If he's transmitting through the engineering grid, we can trace it quietly. Liriana stared at him. You'd risk your career for this. He met her gaze. You risked your life stepping into a human station. Seems fair. Something unspoken passed between them, trust perhaps, or something deeper. Then let's begin, she said. Hours later, deep in the maintenance corridors beneath Harmony Point's gleaming decks, the human and the alien worked in near darkness. Doran's portable console flickered as he bypassed encryption layers, his fingers flying over holographic keys. Liriana watched both amazed and unnerved. Humans and machines, she murmured. You treat them like living things. Machines are honest, Doran replied. They only lie when programmed to. And people lie even to themselves. The console beeped softly. Got it. Transmission log recovered. He projected the data into the airstreams of Allesian symbols scrolling rapidly. Liriana's eyes darted over them, translating instinctively. Her heart stopped. It's a manifesto, she whispered. A declaration of intent to dissolve the human Allesian Accord. Doran's brow furrowed. And here's the kicker, these messages aren't coming from Alesia Prime. They're being routed through Harmony Point's diplomatic array. In other words, she said grimly, the rebellion is being coordinated from this station. Footsteps echoed down the corridor. Both froze. Dorn extinguished the projection, instantly motioning for silence. Two figures appeared at the far end of the hall, prosaids speaking softly in their own tongue. One carried a sealed case bearing the counselor's insignia. Artifacts for the bonding ceremony, one said. He wants them in the observation deck vault until morning. Liriana's blood ran cold. The vault was part of the station's main communications hub. If Pra was storing anything there, it wasn't ceremonial. The aides passed without noticing them disappearing through a side hatch. When the corridor fell silent again, Doran turned to her. They're hiding something. I know. We need proof. Liriana's voice steadied, quiet but resolute. Then we go to the vault. They reached the observation deck after midnight. The chamber was vast, lined with glass that looked out into the endless sea of stars. The bonding altar stood in the center, draped in Allesian silks and surrounded by crystalline urns glowing with soft light. To any observer, it was beautiful. To Liriana, it felt like a tomb. Dorn pried open the vault panel near the altar. Inside was a compact transmission array, a sleek piece of hybrid tech not sanctioned under Galactic Council standards. Definitely not ceremonial, he muttered. Liriana connected her diplomatic key to the interface. Streams of encrypted text filled the air. Accompanied by a pulsing Allesian crest she recognized instantly, a stylized sun split by shadow. The symbol of the supremacy faction. By the moon, she whispered. He's not just plotting sabotage, he's planning to use the bonding as cover for a coup. Doran's eyes hardened. If this leaks during the summit, it'll fracture the alliance. Humans will retaliate. War. She stared at the glowing data, her heart breaking. My people would destroy everything we've built, all because they fear your kind's growth. Fear, Doran said softly, is always what starts wars, but it doesn't have to end them. Their eyes met in the dim light of the vault, the weight of the galaxy pressing down on both of them. Liriana swallowed hard. We have to stop him. But if I expose him, I'll lose everything, my position, my family name. Doran reached out his hand, brushing hers. Then you won't face it alone. Her breath hitched. You already risked enough. I've faced fleets, he said quietly, but I've never faced something that mattered this much. The console beeped, a new transmission detected. Liriana quickly decoded the header. It was from Counselor Pra himself, timestamped minutes ago. Subject Operations Sundered Alliance. Final phase authorization. She read aloud, her voice trembling. Bonding ceremony scheduled for 0900 hours. Activation of secondary relay synchronized with the ceremonial exchange. Command authorization. Dorn exhaled sharply. So that's it. He's using the ceremony as a broadcast signal to launch his coup. She turned to him, resolve burning in her eyes. Then tomorrow during that ceremony, we end it. They sealed the vault and slipped into the shadows as the first light of simulated dawn crept across the station. Above them, Harmony Point continued to shine, beautiful, fragile, and utterly unaware that within the next rotation it might become the spark that ignited a galactic war. The station lights dimmed to evening cycle. Harmony Point prepared for the next day's grand bonding event. To the watching galaxy, it would be a symbol of unity, the merging of Allesian tradition and human cooperation. But to Liriana Tari, it felt like a funeral disguised as a wedding. Every corridor shimmered with Allesian banners. The diplomatic staff rehearsed protocol in whispers. Musicians tuned crystalline instruments that resonated like soft thunder. Yet beneath that beauty, Liriana could sense the rot, the hidden machinery of betrayal, ready to turn the celebration into disaster. She moved quietly through the curved corridors toward the tech sector cloak drawn tight. The translator device at her collar had been resynced, but she no longer trusted it. Every flicker of its light reminded her that language, once her weapon, had become her weakness. When she reached the engineering deck, Doran was waiting. His uniform jacket hung open, pulse pistol holstered at his side. The air smelled faintly of ozone and burnt circuitry. Security's already restricted half the maintenance tunnels, he said. If we're going to get evidence out, we have to move fast. Pra's aides are guarding the observation vault, she replied. If they see us there, he'll know we've uncovered the transmissions. Doran leaned against the console, eyes scanning the schematics. We don't need to get in again. We just need to redirect the relay output. When he activates it tomorrow, it'll transmit to the station's central archive and every major delegation's channel. Public exposure. He nodded. If he tries to use the ceremony to start a coup, his own signal will damn him. Liriana hesitated. And if we fail, then the accord collapses and war starts before dessert. The faint smile in his voice didn't match the tension in his eyes. They worked in near silence, surrounded by the hum of data conduits. Her hands moved swiftly, entering Allesian override codes, while Doran rerouted the human side of the encryption. Every keystroke brought them closer to truth and closer to discovery. At one point, the hum of the station deepened, and a cold blue alert washed over the walls. Doran's console flickered red. "Security lockdown," he muttered. "Someone knows we're in the grid." The intercom crackled. "Commander Maddox, report to the observation deck immediately." It was Pra's voice. Calm, too calm. Doran swore softly. "He's baiting us." Liriana's stomach twisted. "Then he knows." He turned to her. "If we stay, we're trapped. If we run, we confirm his suspicion." She drew herself up, silver eyes blazing. "Then we don't run. We walk in and act like we're still playing our part." Doran met her gaze. "You're sure?" "No, but I'm tired of being afraid." The observation deck was radiant under the ceremonial lights. Transparent glass stretched into infinity, framing the crimson nebula beyond. The bonding altar gleamed in the center, draped in luminous fabrics. Counselor Pra stood near the viewport, hands clasped behind his back, expression carved from stone. Two of his aides flanked him. "Commander Maddox," he said as they entered, "how diligent of you to arrive so swiftly." "Duty calls," Doran replied evenly. Pra's sharp eyes turned to Liriana. "And my future daughter-in-law, ever loyal, ever punctual." She bowed slightly. "You requested us?" "Yes. There's been an unfortunate security anomaly. Unauthorized access to the station's transmission systems, Allesian encryption codes no less." He circled them slowly, voice like silk wrapped around poison. "Tell me, Ambassador Tari, you wouldn't happen to know who could perform such a feat?" Liriana forced calm into her voice. "I do not, Counselor." He smiled. "You lie as poorly as a human." Doran stepped forward. "Careful, Counselor." Pra's tone sharpened. "You forget your place, Commander. You are a liaison, not a protector." Doran's eyes narrowed. "When the lives of every diplomat on this station are at stake, I protect whoever needs it." The tension was a live wire. One wrong breath could ignite it. Pra turned to Liriana, his voice lowering to a hiss. "Do you understand what you've done? I gave you purpose, honor, a place among your betters. And now you sully it with him." Her heart pounded, but she didn't look away. "You've twisted everything our people stand for. Diplomacy isn't dominance. Peace isn't submission." He studied her face for a long moment, then sighed as though disappointed. "You sound more human than Allesian." "Maybe that's not such a terrible thing," she said quietly. Pra's smile died. "We'll see how long that defiance lasts." He gestured sharply. The aides moved toward Doran. Liriana stepped in front of him instinctively. "No." Pra's eyes gleamed. "So predictable." "Still no matter. The bonding proceeds at dawn. Afterward, both of you will have no time left for rebellion." He turned the robe sweeping behind him as he left. The doors sealed with a hydraulic hiss, leaving them alone. Doran exhaled. Well, that could have gone worse. She gave him a look that said otherwise. Later, as the artificial night deepened, Harmony Point became a maze of shadows. The lockdown tightened. Station guards patrolled every hallway. Camera drones hovered like silver eyes. Doran and Liriana slipped through the service conduits, guided by dim emergency lights. The tension between them was palpable, part fear, part desire, both sharpened by danger. When they reached a maintenance hatch overlooking the ceremonial chamber, she crouched, watching technicians prepare for the morning event. "Everything's already in place," she whispered. "The signal relays embedded in the altar's crystal core." "Then we rig the override now," Doran said, crawling beside her. "Once he activates the broadcast, it'll reroute directly to the council." She turned her head to look at him. In the low light, his features were all hard angles and quiet strength. "You make it sound so simple." He smiled faintly. "That's the trick. Always act like you know what you're doing, even when you don't." For a moment, the weight of the galaxy seemed to fade. Their eyes met, the silence electric. "Doran," she said softly, "if we fail, we won't. You don't know that." He shifted closer, his voice barely a breath. "No, but I know this. If we die doing the right thing, that's still better than living under his lie." Her throat tightened. "You humans and your stubborn courage. Occupational hazard." The words weren't enough. Her hand found his, their fingers laced together fitting as if they were made for it. The hum of the station changed a deep resonant thrum. Through the viewport, the nebula pulsed brighter, painting their faces in violent red light. Then the intercom blared, security alert, unauthorized presence detected near observation deck. All personnel respond immediately. Doran cursed. They've traced us. They sprinted through the corridor. Alarm lights strobed, casting crimson flashes across their skin. Behind them, footsteps thundered. Pra's guards. Left, Doran shouted. They darted into a narrow maintenance passage. Sparks showered from the ceiling as a stray energy bolt missed them by inches. Liriana's heart hammered in her chest. She could taste metal and adrenaline. Go, Doran urged, pushing her ahead. I'll hold them. She grabbed his wrist. You will not. He grinned despite the chaos. I keep forgetting you outrank me. They burst into a storage bay filled with stacked supply crates. The noise of pursuit faded, at least for a moment. Both collapsed behind cover, gasping. Liriana looked at him, sweat-glistening uniform scorched at the sleeve, eyes burning with defiance. You're insane. Probably, he said, between breaths. But you're here, so what does that make you? She laughed, a breathless, desperate sound that somehow felt like hope. Their laughter died as the door's lock light turned red. Someone was overriding the control from the outside. We're out of time, Doran said. Liriana pressed a glowing crystal drive into his palm. Here, the data we copied from the vault. If I can't make it, get it to Commander Harrington. His hand closed over hers. If we can't make it, he corrected. The door burst open. 3 guards stormed in, weapons raised. Doran reacted first, dropping one with a pulse shot, tackling another before he could fire. The third aimed for Liriana. She ducked, swept up a fallen blaster, and fired. The recoil jolted through her arms. The guard fell. For a moment, there was only the sound of their breathing and the acrid smell of burned ozone. Doran looked at her, half grinning. Remind me never to get on your bad side. But the humor couldn't mask the truth. They had crossed the line. There was no going back now. He activated the maintenance console. We can reach the security wing through the ventilation crawl. Harrington's office connects to the upper command deck. And Praga, he hesitated. He'll realize what we've done soon enough. Good, Liriana said, eyes cold. Let him know the daughter he tried to control just declared war. An hour later, as they crawled through the final passage toward command level, the emergency lights flickered. The station's AI voice echoed through the ducts. Level 2 security lockdown initiated. Unidentified Allesian transmission detected. Liriana froze. He's activating the signal early. Doran's eyes widened. He's starting the coup right now. She turned, fury blazing through fear. Then so do we. They dropped into the command deck, weapons drawn. The room erupted into chaos, alarms, shouting, flashing screens. Commander Harrington spun from her console in shock. What in hell? No time, Doran barked. Patch the transmission output through central comms. We're hijacking the signal. Liriana stepped forward, slamming her diplomatic key onto the main interface. The Allesian glyphs cascaded across the screen. Routing the broadcast now. On every screen aboard Harmony Point, in every embassy chamber and observation hall, Counselor Pra's voice boomed, declaring in Allesian, the time of human dominance ends tonight. The supremacy will rise. But then the feed distorted and replaced his image with hers. Liriana Tari, standing tall, eyes burning with a conviction. No, she said clearly, tonight we end the lies. Her words reverberated through the entire station, carried across both languages, across both species. The grand observation deck had never looked so magnificent nor so doomed. At first glance, the chamber shimmered with splendor. Banners of silver and violet fluttered above lights refracted off the curved glass dome, and the endless nebula beyond pulsed like a living heartbeat. Representatives from a dozen worlds filled the balconies, murmuring with anticipation. But beneath the ceremony's elegance ran a current of panic. Everyone had heard the corrupted transmission, Counselor Pra's voice calling for supremacy, followed by Liriana's defiance. Some thought it a technical malfunction. Others whispered the unthinkable, a coup attempt unfolding live. Still, Pra pressed forward, face a mask of serene authority as he stood beside the ceremonial altar. He couldn't back down now, not in front of the galaxy. Liriana entered last, flanked by guards who had no idea what storm they were escorting. She wore the traditional Allesian bonding robes, iridescent threads of silver interwoven with blue, their elegance contrasting with the quiet fire in her eyes. Her translator glowed faintly at her collar, steady and ready. Commander Doran Maddox stood at the rear of the chamber, among the human delegation, a quiet sentinel in dark uniform. He had one hand resting subtly on his sidearm, his other gripping the data drive that contained the proof of Pra's treason. Every eye followed Liriana as she approached the altar. Every breath in the room seemed to hold its own translation. Prey smiled thinly. "Daughter of the Covenant," he said in their native tongue, his voice magnified for the crowd. "You stand here as tradition dictates to unite two noble houses and reaffirm the glory of our people." Liriana's expression was unreadable. And yet glory means nothing if it is built on deceit. The crowd stirred, translators whispering her words into every ear. Pra's smile faltered. "There is no deceit here, child, only honor." "Then why does your honor require sabotage and blood?" Gasps rippled through the chamber. Pra's voice sharpened. "Enough, your reckless interference has already embarrassed us before our allies. I will not let you destroy what generations of Allesian greatness have built." She took a single step closer, lifting her chin. "You already have." For a moment, only the hum of the station filled the silence. Then Liriana turned toward the crowd. "My fellow delegates," she said, switching to human standards so all could understand. "Counselor Pra has used this ceremony as a cover for a treasonous act. He intended to transmit a coded signal through the altar's relay, a command to the supremacy faction to sever all human Allesian accords." A wave of commotion broke out. Cameras hovered. Reporters spoke into their wrist feeds. The galaxy was watching, and the galaxy was shocked. Pra raised his hand sharply. Lies, she was manipulated by her human handler. Look at her, polluted by their ways, compromised by their lust. He turned on Doran, voice thundering. "This is your doing. Commander, a human soldier seducing an Allesian diplomat. How convenient for your species' agenda." Doran stepped forward, unshaken. "My agenda is survival, counselor, of both our peoples." Pra's voice grew venomous. "Do you deny the intimacy between you?" Doran met his gaze squarely. "No, I honor it." That admission detonated across the hall like an explosion. Gasps, whispers, outrage. But Doran's voice didn't waver, because in that moment there was no human and no Allesian, only two beings who refused to be divided by fear. "If that's corruption, counselor, then maybe your purity is the real disease." The words hit like plasma fire. Pra's composure cracked. "Arrest him," he barked to the guards. But before they could move, Commander Harrington of the human fleet stepped forward from the delegation gallery, her voice cold and cutting. "Touch that man and you violate Article 3 of the Interstellar Accord. Any hostile act during a diplomatic session constitutes an act of war." Her statement froze the room. Prey hesitated, his every move now broadcast to every planet watching. Liriana stepped up beside the altar, voice ringing with conviction. "You claim I am corrupted by humans? Then perhaps I have learned something my own people forgot. Truth is not impurity and courage is not rebellion." She reached toward the altar's glowing heart, the embedded relay, and ripped free the crystalline core. Sparks exploded in a cascade of blue light. Every translator on the station activated simultaneously, repeating her words in 100 tongues. Technology can fail, tradition can fail, but honesty must never fail. The crowd erupted, some in applause, others in outrage. Pra's face contorted with fury. "You foolish child. You think this spectacle will save you." He lunged forward, seizing her wrist. "You've doomed us all." "Not all," she whispered. Doran was already moving. He crossed the distance between them in a heartbeat, his hand slamming into Pra's arm, wrenching him away. The counselor stumbled back, robes tearing. The concealed transmitter device he'd hidden beneath fell to the floor, clattering loudly. The hollow screens instantly magnified the image. Gasps turned into shouts. Doran trained his pistol on Pra, voice low and steady. "You wanted the galaxy to witness your triumph, counselor. Congratulations, it's witnessing your confession instead." Pra's eyes blazed with desperate fury. "You think humans have won. You think your species will not consume everything it touches. You are chaos given flesh." Doran didn't flinch. "Maybe, but we're chaos that learns." That sentence landed like thunder, the perfect HFY moment, pure and defiant. Security officers from both factions surged forward. Commander Harrington's team secured the transmitter, while Allesian guards surrounded Pra. He fought shouting in fury, but it was useless. The galaxy had seen too much. As the chamber descended into chaos, Liriana stood trembling, the remnants of the crystalline relay still glowing faintly in her hand. Doran reached at her side. "You all right?" She nodded numbly. "It's over." He looked around at the shocked dignitaries, the flashing cameras, the unraveling illusion of order. "No," he said softly. "It's just beginning." Hours later, the observation deck lay quiet again. The banners had been torn down, the guests dispersed, only the faint hum of the life support systems remained. Liriana sat near the viewport, gazing out at the stars. Doran stood beside her, his reflection merging with hers in the glass. "You didn't have to do it like that," he said. "You could have let me expose him through the council." She smiled faintly. "Then it would have been a human victory. This way it's ours." He studied her for a long moment. "You realize your people might brand you a traitor." "They already have," she whispered. "But if being loyal means protecting liars, I'll wear the title proudly." He exhaled, half in admiration, half in awe. "You're braver than anyone in this sector." She looked at him, eyes reflecting starlight. "No, just tired of letting others speak for me." A soft chime interrupted them. The station's main AI voice announced Counselor Pra under arrest. Galactic Council emergency session convening in 12 hours. Doran turned to her. "You'll have to testify." "So will you." He smiled faintly. "Guess we're both out of jobs after this." "Maybe," she said, "but at least we told the truth." For a moment, silence enveloped them, a rare, peaceful silence that felt like a beginning rather than an ending. Then she spoke again softly. "Doran, when I first arrived here, I believed peace was built through perfect words. Now I know it's built through imperfect people." He grinned. "That sounds like a compliment." "It is." The nebula outside flared, painting their faces in blue and gold light. He reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. For once, no translation was needed. At that exact moment, in the depths of the station's communication network, the last remnants of Pra's corrupted data pulsed one final time before deletion. But embedded deep within the code, the system logged a small error message, harmless, almost poetic. "Translation anomaly detected, meaning uncertain." If the machine could dream, perhaps it would have understood that not every mistranslation was a mistake. Some were simply the universe finding a new way to tell the truth. The artificial dawn crept slowly across Harmony Point, spilling soft gold light over a station that had survived the night's chaos. Repair drones floated silently between corridors, sealing scorched panels and patching shattered glass. The air smelled faintly of ozone and disinfectant, a metallic reminder of everything that had almost burned. For the first time in her life, Liriana Tari didn't have a schedule, a superior, or a command to obey. She had freedom, and it terrified her. She stood by the viewport of the empty diplomatic hall, watching the nebula shift outside. The stars looked colder today. The translator device at her collar blinked softly, freshly recalibrated and silent. She had been offered a new model by the council technicians, one with a cleaner interface and better accuracy. She had declined. Some mistakes she thought deserved to be remembered. Behind her, the door slid open with a quiet hiss. Commander Doran Maddox entered, now dressed in the plain fatigues of a man stripped of rank. His uniform insignia had been removed that morning. He looked strange without them, simpler, more human, and somehow more real. "They've finalized the tribunal," he said. "Pra's confession, your testimony. The data we pulled, it's enough. The council has dissolved the supremacy faction's authority. Arrest warrants went out this morning." Liriana turned. "And my people, they've requested your presence on Alesia," he replied carefully. "The High Council called it a debriefing, but Harrington says it's an inquiry hearing." "Inquiry," she repeated softly. "That's a delicate word for exile." Doran's jaw tightened. "You told the truth, Liriana. They can't punish you for that." She smiled faintly without humor. "Truth has always frightened those who build empires on silence." He stepped closer, his voice gentler. "Then maybe it's time someone stopped being afraid." She looked up at him, eyes shining with something between sorrow and defiance. "You sound like a human again." "I am," he said simply. "And so are you, at least a little." Her laugh was soft but broken. "That may be the cruelest compliment anyone's ever given me." He smiled. "You're welcome." The tribunal chamber later that day felt smaller than the vast hall she'd once trained in on Alesia. The human and Allesian flags hung side by side above the dais. Counselor Pra stood in custody at the center wrist, bound with magnetic restraints. His arrogance was gone, replaced by something emptier, resentment hollowed out by defeat. When called to testify, Liriana spoke without notes. She described the coded transmissions, the supremacy's plot, the corrupted relay hidden inside the bonding altar. She spoke of deception disguised as diplomacy, of unity, twisted into control. She didn't once mention the night she and Doran had shared, the night that had set everything in motion. When she finished, the chamber was silent. One of the human judges, an older woman with kind eyes, finally spoke. Ambassador Tari, do you have any final words for this tribunal? Liriana glanced at Pra, then at the crowded room of diplomats, soldiers, and politicians, the architects of peace and the merchants of war. Yes, she said, her voice was steady. Machines translate our words, but they cannot translate our hearts. Every treaty, every alliance fails not because of language, but because of fear. If we wish for peace, we must stop trying to sound perfect and start trying to be honest. She removed the translator from her collar and set it on the stand before her. The device blinked twice, then went dark. I no longer need a machine to tell me what I mean. The room erupted in murmurs. Some called it blasphemy, others bravery. But she felt lighter than she had in years. Counselor Pra was sentenced to permanent exile on a remote moon colony, far from politics, far from the corridors of power he had corrupted. The announcement spread across the galactic feeds like wildfire. Humans and Allesians alike reacted in equal measure: shock, awe, admiration, and outrage. For the first time, neither species controlled the narrative completely. And in that fragile chaos, something new began, a dialogue without translators. Doran found Liriana later in the Arboretum. The garden light shimmered across her skin, painting her in gold and silver hues. Commander Maddox, she greeted, turning to him with a small, tired smile. He shook his head. No more, Commander, just Doran. She tilted her head. Then I suppose I am no longer Ambassador Tari, just Liriana. That's simpler, he said. I like simple. Simple, she echoed softly, looking at the nebula blooming through the glass. Nothing about this feels simple. He joined her by the rail. For a long time, they said nothing. Then he asked quietly, what will you do now? I don't know, she admitted. Return to Alesia if they let me. Or perhaps not. Maybe I've already left in every way that matters. You could stay here, he said. Harmony Point's going to need new leadership. People who actually believe in harmony. She turned to him. Would you serve under me? He smirked. I think I already do. Her laugh this time was real soft and beautiful. You're incorrigible. Occupational hazard, he replied. The humor faded, replaced by a silence heavier than gravity. You risked everything, she said. Your career, your people's trust. For me. For truth, he corrected. You just happened to be the truth I found. Her breath caught. Doran. He stepped closer. You asked me once how humans express gratitude. I never gave you a proper answer. And what is it, she whispered. He leaned forward, brushing his lips against her forehead, first gentle and reverent. Like that, he murmured. Then lower against her lips, and sometimes like that. She didn't pull away. The translator on the table beside them flickered weakly to life, perhaps triggered by the proximity of two voices it once misunderstood. For a moment, static filled the air. Then in the soft hum of translation code, the device spoke one last time. Connection achieved. They both laughed quietly. Seems it finally got something right, Doran said. Or maybe, she replied, we finally did. 2 rotations late, the High Council's shuttle arrived to take her home. She stood on the docking bridge, luggage in hand, staring at the open airlock that would lead her back to Alesia and to judgment. Doran was beside her, expression unreadable. You could come with me, she said. Testify before the council. Speak for humanity. He shook his head. You don't need me to speak for you anymore. She hesitated. Then this is goodbye. For now, he said. The galaxy's big, but not that big. The airlock alarms chimed, a reminder that her time was measured. Doran, she hesitated, searching for the right words. If the translator had never glitched, if none of this had happened, do you think we'd still have found each other? He smiled, a slow, honest smile that reached his eyes. Maybe not, but sometimes the universe speaks clearer when it stutters. Her heart twisted. That sounds like something I would have said. I'm a fast learner. She laughed through the ache. Goodbye, human. Goodbye, alien. The airlock sealed between them. Through the small viewport, she saw him raise a hand in salute. She pressed her palm against the glass in answer. The ship disengaged, drifting free of Harmony Point engines igniting with silent blue fire. As the stars stretched into streaks of light, Liriana whispered a final thought into the quiet cabin. No translation required. Weeks later, on an outpost at the edge of known space, Commander Harrington received an encrypted message. It bore no sender, no origin trace. Just a single sentence rendered in two languages, Human Standard and Allesian glyphs side by side. Peace is not built by perfection, but by the courage to mistranslate beautifully. No one ever discovered who sent it, but somewhere in the endless silence between stars, a human pilot and an alien diplomat watched the same nebula flare across the black, each knowing that their story, born from a broken machine, had reprogrammed the meaning of peace.